name's Taylor, and I'm going to be going over my service learning project with you guys. I chose to do my service learning with primary pediatrics. What is service learning exactly? Well, honestly, I'd never heard of this prior to this class, so it had me questioning for a few weeks exactly what this was. I did a little bit of research, and I found out that service learning is pretty much mostly always tied to a curriculum. So basically what you're learning in class. For example, with this class, we're learning about the psychological stages for growth and development. Well, I'm going to take those psychological stages that we're learning about and apply them to my volunteering where I'm going to be learning. So service learning is directly defined by Vanderbilt as a form of education where learning occurs through a cycle of action and reflection as students seek to achieve real objectives for community and a deeper understanding and skill for themselves. So who did I serve with? I chose primary pediatrics. Unfortunately, I do work for them, so I had to go in on my one off day a week. But I do work the COVID unit a good bit, and there's not a lot of places that'll let you volunteer or do any kind of service learning projects with, working in COVID, especially during this pandemic. Now, primary pediatrics has multiple locations: Macon, Warner Robins, Forsyth, Bonaire, even McDonough. And the hours do vary location to location, but I did get a chance to visit Macon, Warner Robins, and Forsyth, and even McDonough for a day, just to be able to go in on my off day and sit back, kind of take a step back from my job duty roles and into a student role where I get to learn and ask questions that I don't typically get to ask. Because this is a medical facility, there are not a lot of pictures and stuff that are taken just because it's a HIPAA violation. Pediatrics, but seeing adults. Crazy, I know. But what do you consider too old to see a pediatrician? Because at primary, we sit to the age of 21. Now, during this COVID pandemic, we actually see up until pretty much death, I guess. If you can't bring yourself in or have a loved one bring you, then obviously we won't see you. But if you can get yourself here, we will see you, mostly for COVID only. We will swab you, send you on your way, and we'll call you with your results. Now, up to the age of 21, they do actually bring you in and do a full assessment. So I get to see all the way from stage 1 or infancy all the way up to pretty much emerging adulthood, and it's kind of weird to associate emerging adulthood with pediatrics. Now, the two psychological stages I studied were stage 1, or trust versus mistrust. And the main question in this stage is, can I trust the people around me? It's mostly used for infancy, where you're dependent upon your caregiver to understand how one cry can mean, I need attention, to another one meaning I'm hungry, to I'm wet, to I just need to be consoled. But I will tell you, having a grown man in his 50s, 60s, 70s come in for a COVID test, they do revert back to this stage. Don't let anyone fool you. Now, the second stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. The main question presented in this stage is, can I do this on my own, or am I dependent upon someone else for help? This stage is probably the main stage that I saw during my service learning. Typically, when they were doing labs, for example, they came in, got checked in, got height, weight, vitals, all that good stuff, and if a patient needed a lab, you kind of had to talk them into it or make them think it was their idea. And that was honestly the best way to get the child or the patient to be cooperative, is if you give them a choice and make them think they're in control of their visit, they tended to cooperate a little bit better. Now we're going to talk about Triage, Covet, and Ppe. So the triage stage is when you first arrive at primary. They have you drive up under a portico, and they ask you questions. And depending upon your questions, you're either going to be seen inside or you'll be seen outside. So if you've been exposed to COVID or traveled where you couldn't socially distance and no mask, or you have symptoms like this loss of taste or smell, there's no way you're coming in the building. And that's just as a precautionary for anyone who's in the building, whether it be staff or other patients. So there's not going to be too terribly much on the COVID and PPE, but there is a slide just to show you what the PPE looks like and kind of show why it would be terrifying in this early stage of your life for someone you don't know. So this is my friend Shayna. She was nice enough to get fully decked out upstairs away from patients and patient information to capture a quick picture. And this is our full PPE. just from looking at it, you can probably see why children would be afraid of seeing you come at them in this outfit. So there was a lot of trust gaining in this process. This is mostly just for COVID only, unless it was some other kind of severe contact issue. This is a gown, gloves, an N95 mask, a face shield. She's got her hairnet on, and she's got boot covers. That's just as a protection thing. But yeah, the swab in this bottom picture is a Nasopharyngeal Swab. So it goes pretty far back. So, I mean, like, if you don't know how far back, you just don't want to know how far back. But you could see why anyone would be a little unsure of this person coming at you. So this next slide that you'll see is just a few pictures of some different types of labs and equipment that we use. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but you'll get to see just a couple things. This is just a couple of pictures of different labs. You have like a strep in the right top corner. The CBC is in the lower corner. It's just the finger stick where we draw the blood. You know, your stethoscope, your pulse ox, different thermometers, and types of sutures. And they do a various different types of labs, which can cause that trust versus mistrust. So, in summary, definitely enjoy being able to step back out of the working role into a learning role. Did have a lot of ups and downs. I learned a lot of things that I didn't necessarily know I already had learned from working there. So, taking the step back and learning more, I'll be able to apply it for the future for sure. I had some great ups. We had a kid come in, and I was here on my off hours, not really volunteering, but during my service learning, who wasn't too happy about getting a neb. And I remember going in the room and just turning it off, sitting down on the floor, and he kind of climbed into my lap. We turned on a YouTube video. He let me put the mask back on him. I let him turn the machine on, and he let me do the whole neb. And he was about 2. After that 15 minutes, I went out of the room. He finished, gotten seen by the doctor, and on his way out, he stopped and hugged me. And it made me realize that I've learned a lot of patience through this project as well as working here that I can apply more so into my job as well as in my future nursing career. I'm definitely going to look into doing this again later on down the road just because I feel like it does teach you a lot of things.